As we learn how to use our Lutheran study Bibles a little bit more and we learn how to read the Bible, we know that we want to read to understand. We've talked about asking questions while you read, and the questions that you should be asking should help you understand the context, the who, what, where, when, why of the story. This is especially important because most of the time when we are cherry picking Bible verses out of scripture, we don't have context for it. We might take something from King David's time, and we might take something from Jesus' time, and we kind of mash them together, not realizing there's a lot of difference in the audiences and the scenarios that are happening. And so we need to be mindful of the context. It is a little foreign, but you'd be surprised at how easy context can become once you start understanding it. Take this story, for example. I was having pain in my heart, so I was about to drive into the heart of the city to see a doctor when I received a text message. The heart of the message was about someone who was so cold-hearted that they broke up with my friend over text, which left them with a broken heart. I'm sad because my friend has such a good heart. Whenever they do something, they put their whole heart into it. It really made my heart ache. Now, my first question is, did you understand the story? I think for the most part, every single one of you understood what was happening in the story. We used the word heart 8 different times, and each of those uses of the word heart actually had a little bit different context. Some of them were pretty closely related, but having pain in your heart is referring to the organ that's in your chest. Driving into the heart of the city means you're driving into the center of the city. Now, that's where the heart is, but it's not talking about the organ on your body. The heart of the message is the main idea. Again, they're all related, but they're using the same word in different ways. So your brain automatically used the context of our modern world to understand what was going on. Now, if you took somebody like one of Jesus' disciples, Peter, and you read him the same story, he would have a really hard time understanding it, okay? He might pick up a little bit based on context because they use similar words like heart in multiple ways, but it still might be tough for him to understand. So there might be some things that you would need to teach him about the uses of the word. The same thing is going to be true for how we read scripture. We're going to have to learn how certain words are used in different contexts. And we also can't assume that the Bible is using a word that we're used to in the exact same way that we use it in our modern world today. Now, a cool trivia question is that there is no Hebrew word for mind. It doesn't exist. They didn't have a category for it. Now, they knew what thinking was, but when they described a mind, they would actually use the word heart. Now, before you make a judgment, we actually do this quite a bit anyway, right? We say that we know something in our heart. So it's not too foreign to us either. We may not be speaking completely different languages, but it is important to understand the context. Otherwise, you're going to run into some major problems. If you're reading scripture and trying to understand what's going on, you might get confused really quick if you have a different context. For example, ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord. Now, if you're reading Zechariah 2, verse 6, and you hear, ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, what does that sound like to you guys? If you said Santa, that's what I would think of, because when we think of the land of the north, we think of the North Pole. When we think of ho, 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 that is our context. That's obviously not the context for Zechariah. He's certainly not talking about Santa. In 1 Corinthians 11:14, there's a statement that says, does not the very nature of things teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him? Now, if that's a command and it's coming from the Bible, isn't that something that we should follow? So that you should cut your hair if it's too long because it is a disgrace to you? But again, it's a different context. So not everybody with long hair is a disgrace. So you don't have to go cut your hair just because you read in the Bible that you have to. In Revelation, there's a lot of stuff that's like this. And I looked and behold a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given him. And he came out conquering and to conquer. And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was given a great sword. And behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed with him. And they were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. Now, if you took this story literally, it might look something like this. So is this what we can expect in the end times? It's these freaky pictures that would give us nightmares. But the reality is, it's probably not the case. I mean, even think about it. What they have in their hands, like you have the sickle, great. Somebody with a bow, all right. The flaming sword, that's pretty awesome. And then what? The fourth guy just draws a short straw and he has scales? What are you going to do with scales? So clearly, it's not meant to show you a picture of something that's coming to destroy using a pair of scales. There's got to be a deeper meaning, and we understand that by looking at the context. And we know that this is apocalyptic literature. And the last one here, if we had any question about it, we know that this is something that Jesus said. So you have to do what Jesus says, right? Mark 9:43. And if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than with two hands to go to hell, to the unquenchable fire. So does that mean because Jesus said to cut your hand off that you're supposed to just cut your hand off? Clearly, that's not the case. Now, Jesus is using metaphorical language here. Okay, he's actually using exaggeration, hyperbole, in order to make a point. So we don't take everything literally here that he's telling him to cut his hand off. He's actually making a really funny point if you read the context of the whole story. But the only piece of it is not just cut your hand off. There's more to the story. So understanding what comes before and what comes after helps you understand what Jesus is trying to say. All these things are really important in trying to read the Bible. So I hope you guys can remember how to look for context. We're going to be doing it all semester.